Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parbrahm Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Om Dhyanamoolam Guru Murti Pujamulam Guru Padam Mantramulam Guru Vakya Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Shivoham friends. So up to now we have gone through 28 chapters of Upasna Khand, and in today's session Bali's meditation and Shukra's advice to the demons. I think we have taken this chapter also. From 29th onward we will take, and in this chapter it says Bali returns to ordinary consciousness. And in the previous chapter, Shukra has told to his attendants that he will take at least 1000 years for meditation. Now, in the 29th chapter, Vasishtha is relating after 1000 years passed in Bali's unconsciousness, he was roused to consciousness by the gods beating heavenly drums above. Bali being awake, his city, Mavalipuram, was renovated with fresh beauty. As the lotus bed is revivified by the rising sun in the eastern horizon. Bali, not seeing any demons before him, fell into reflecting upon the dreams he had seen in his state of samadhi. He thought, oh, how charming was that cooling bliss of spiritual delight, in which my soul had been enraptured for a short time. Oh, how I long to resume that state of joy. These outward enjoyments, which I have tasted to my fills, cease to please me anymore. Not even the delights of the full moon can compare to the waves of bliss I felt in my soul during my entranced state of unconsciousness. Pali was attempting to resume his state of samadhi when he was interrupted by attendant demons. As the moon is intercepted by clouds, he glanced at them and was going to close his eyes in meditation after making his prostration on the ground, but was interrupted by their gigantic statures standing around him. He then reflected, the intellect being devoid of its option, there is nothing for me to desire. Only the mind that is fond of pleasures vainly pursues them. Why should I desire my freedom when I am not confined or attached to anything here? It is childish to seek liberation when I am not bound to anything below. I have no desire for liberation or fear of bondage since the disappearance of my ignorance. What need do I have to meditation? What good is meditation to me? Meditation and lack of meditation are both mistakes of the mind. We must depend on our courage and hail all that comes to pass on us without rejoicing or shrinking. I require neither thoughtfulness nor thoughtlessness, neither enjoyments nor privation, but must remain unmoved and firm as one sane and sound. I have no longing for the spiritual or craving for temporal things. I don't have to remain in a meditative mood or in the state of giddy worldliness. I'm not dead and I can't be living. I'm neither a reality nor an unreality. I am not a material or aerial body. I am not of this world or any other, but identical with the great conscious void. I am in this world, I will remain here quietly. When I am not here, I will abide calmly in the solace of my soul. What shall I do with my meditation? And what shall I do with my royalty? Let anything come to pass as it may. I am nothing for this or that, nor is anything mine. Though I have nothing to do, yet I must do the duties belonging to my station in society. After reaching this determination in his mind, Bali, the wisest of the wise, looked upon the demons with detachment, like the sun looking upon lotuses. With the nods and glances of his eyes, he received their homage, like passing winds bear the fragrances of flowers. Then Bali, ceasing to think on the subject of his meditation, approached them concerning their respective duties under him. He honored the gods and his gurus with due respect and saluted his friends and officers with his best regards. He honored all his servants and suitors with his largesse, and he pleased attendant maidens with various persons. So he continued to prosper in every department of his government until he made up his mind to perform a great sacrifice. He satisfied all beings with his great gifts and gratified the great gods and sages with due honor and veneration. Then he commenced the ceremony of the sacrifice under the guidance of Shukra and the chief gurus and priests. Then Vishnu, the lord of Lakshmi, came to know that Bali had no desire of earthly rewards. Vishnu appeared at the sacrifice to crown Bali with the success of his undertaking and confer upon him his desired blessing. He cunningly persuaded Bali to make a gift of the world to Indra, his elder brother, who was insatiably fond of all kinds of enjoyments. Having used his artifices to deceive Bali, dispossesses him of the three worlds. Vishnu shut him in the netherworld, just as they confine a monkey in a cave under the ground. Thus, Bali continues to remain in his confinement to this day, with his mind fixed in meditation for the purpose of again attaining the rule of Indra in a future state of life. The living liberated Bali, being thus restrained in the infernal cave, looks upon his former prosperity and his present adversity in the same light. There is no rising or setting of his consciousness in the states of his pleasure or pain. His intelligence remains one and the same in its full brightness, like the disk of the sun in a painting. He saw the repeated ebb and flow of worldly enjoyments and settled his mind in utter indifference to them. He overcome multitudes of changing fortunes for multitudes of years in all his reincarnations in the three worlds, and at last found his rest in utter disregard of all mortal things. He felt thousands of comforts and disquiets, and hundreds of pleasures and privations of life. After his long experience of these, he found his rest in his perfect quiescence. Bali, having forsaken his desire of enjoyments, enjoyed the fullness of his mind in the absence of his desires. He rejoiced in the self sufficiency of his soul and in the loneliness of his underground cave. After a course of many years, Bali regained his sovereignty of the world and governed it for a long time to his heart's content. But he was neither elated by his elevation to the dignity of Indra, the Lord of gods, nor was he depressed at this subjugation to prosperity. He was one and the same person in every state of his life, and enjoyed the equanimity of his soul, resembling the serenity of the ethereal sphere. O Ram, I have related to you the whole story of Bali's attainment of true wisdom. I advise you now to imitate this example for your elevation to the same state of perfection. Learn, as Bali did, by his own discernment, to think of yourself as the immortal and everlasting soul. Try to reach the state of your oneness with the supreme unity by your courageous self control and self resignation. Bali, the Lord of Demons, exercised full authority over the three worlds for more than a millennium, but at last he came to feel an utter distaste for all the enjoyments of life. Therefore, O victorious Ram, forego the enjoyments of life, which are sure to be attended with a distaste and nausea at the end. Take yourself to that state of true joy which never grows tasteless. These visible sights, O Ram, are as numerous as they are temptations to the soul. They appear as even and charming as a distant mountain, but proves to be rough and rugged as you approach it. Restrain your mind in the cavity of your heart from its pursuit of perishable objects of enjoyment, either in this life or in the next, which are so alluring to all men of ordinary sense. Know yourself to be identical with consciousness, which shines like the sun throughout the universe and illuminates every object in nature without distinction or partiality. Know yourself, O mighty Ram, to be infinite spirit and the transcendent soul of all bodies that has manifested itself in manifold forms that are like the bodies of the internal intellect. Know your soul to be like a thread passing through and interwoven with everything in existence, like a string connecting all the links of creation, like so many gems of a necklace or the beads of a rosary. Know yourself as the unborn and embodied soul of Raj, the resplendent Brahma, which is never born and never dies. Never fall into the mistake of thinking pure consciousness is subject to birth or death. Know your desires are the causes of your birth, like death and diseases. Therefore, shun your desire of enjoyment and enjoy all things in the manner of, of the all witnessing consciousness. If you remain in the everlasting light of the sun of your consciousness, you will come to find the phenomenal world to be only a phantom of your dream. Never regret or sorrow for anything. Don't think of pleasures or pain which do not affect your soul. You are pure consciousness and the all pervading soul which manifests itself in everything. Know that what is desirable are your evils, and the undesirable is for your good. Therefore, shun the former by your continued practice of the later. By forsaking your ideas of desirable and undesirable, you will develop a habit of mentally seizing desires. When the habit takes a deep root in your heart, you no longer have to be reborn in this world. Retract your mind from everything to which it runs like a boy after vain, bright trinklets. Settle your mind in yourself for your own good. Thus, by using your best efforts to restrain your mind and also by your habit of self control, you will subdue the rampant elephant of your mind and ultimately reach your highest bliss. Don't become like ignorant fools who believe their bodies are their chief good, and who are infatuated by false reasoning and infidelity, deluded by impostors to gratify their sensual desires. What man is more ignorant in this world and more subject to its evils than one who derives his spiritual knowledge from the one who smatters in theology and relies on the dogmas of pretenders and false philosophers? Dispel the cloud of false reasoning from the atmosphere of your mind by the hurricane of right reasoning which drives all darkness before it. You cannot be said to have right reasoning until you come to the light and sight of the soul, both by your own efforts and by the grace of the Supreme Spirit. Neither the Vedas, nor Vedantas, nor the science of logic or any other scripture can give you any light of the soul unless it appears of itself within you. It is by cultivating yourself, aided by the instruction and divine grace, that you have gained your perfect knowledge and appear to rest yourself in the Supreme Spirit. There are three ways in which you come to spiritual light. First, a lack of knowledge of duality. Then, the brightness of your intellectual light by the grace of God. And third, the wide extent of your knowledge derived from my instructions. You are now free of your mental maladies. You have become sound by abandonment of your desires, by removal of your doubts and errors, and by forsaking the mist of your fondness for external objects. O Ram, as you get rid of the errors of your understanding, so you advance by degrees in gaining your knowledge, in cherishing your resignation, in destroying your defects, in imbibing the bliss of ecstasy, in wandering with exultation, and in elevating your soul to the sixth sphere. But all this is not enough unless you attain Brahma itself. So, with this, chapter 29 comes to an end. And in the chapter 30, there is another story of Prahlad. Narasimha destroys Hiranyakashipu, and the age of demons is discussed. Vasishtha is continuing. Ram, listen to the instructive story of Prahlad. The story of demons who became a spiritual adept by his own intuition. There was a mighty demon in the infernal regions named Hiranyakashipu, who was as valiant as Vishnu himself and had expelled the gods and demigods from their abodes. He mastered all the treasures of the world and wrested its possession from the hands of Vishnu, just like a swan encroaching upon a bee on the large leaves of a lotus. Hiranyakashipu defeated the Deva gods and the Asura demons and ruled over the whole earth like an elephant masters a lotus bed by chasing the swans away. The lord of the Asuras, having usurped the monarchy of the three worlds, had many sons in course of time. As springs brings forth the shoots of trees, these children grew up to manhood in time with the display of their courageous prowess. Like so many brilliant suns, they stretched their thousand rays on all sides of the earth and skies. The eldest, Prahlad, became the regent, just as Vishnu's Kaustubh diamond is preeminent among all precious gems. Hiranyakashipu delighted exceedingly in his fortunate son Prahlad, like the ear rejoices in its flowering time of spring. Supported by his son on one hand and possessed of his force and treasures on the other, Hiranyakashipu became puffed up with his pride, like a swollen elephant emitting foam from his triangular mouth. Shining with his luster and elated by his pride, he dried and drewed up the moisture of the earth by his unbearable taxation. like the all-destroying suns of universal resolution, passed the world by their rays. His conduct annoyed the gods, the sun, and the moon, just as the behavior of a haughty boy becomes unbearable to his fellow comrades. They all applied to Brahma to destroy the archdemon, because the repeated misbehaviors of the wicked are unbearable to the good and great. It was then that lion like Narasimha clattered his nails, resembling the tusk of an elephant, and thundered loudly like the rumbling noise of the regent elephants of all the quarters of heaven, fills concave world on its last doomsday. Narasimha's tusk like nails and teeth glittered like lightning flashing off in the sky. The radiance of his earrings filled the hollow sphere of heaven with curling flames of living fire. The sides and caves of mountains presented a fearful aspect. Huge trees were shaken by a tremendous tempest that rent the skies and tore the roof of heaven. He emitted gusts of winds from his mouth and entrails which drove the mountains before them. His eyeballs flashed with the living fire of his rage, which was about to consume the world. His shining mane shook with the glare of sunbeams. The pores of the hairs of his body emitted sparks of fire, like the craters of a volcano. Mountains everywhere shook with a tremendous shaking, and the whole body of Narasimha shot forth a variety of arms in every direction. Vishnu, in his Narasimha form of half man and half lion, killed the gigantic demon by goring him with his tusks, like an elephant goring the body of a horse with a grating sound. The population of the demon Hell City was burned down by gushing fire from his eyeballs, which burned like the all devouring conflagration of the last doomsday. The breath of his nostrils drove everything before it like a hurricane. The clapping of his arms sounded like great waves crashing on hollow shores. Demons fled before him like moths from burning fire. They became extinct as extinguished lamps at the blazing light of the day. After the burning of the demon, Hell City, and the expulsion of the demons, the infernal regions presented a void waste like at the last devastation of the world. After the Lord Narasimha had expelled the demonic race at the end of the demon age, he disappeared from view with the grateful greetings of the council of gods. Surviving sons of the demon who had fled from the burning of their city were afterwards led back to it by Prahlada, just as migrating fowls are made to return to the dry lake bed in by a rain shower. There they mourned the dead bodies of demons, lamented at the loss of their possessions, and performed funeral ceremonies for their departed friends and relatives. After burning the dead bodies of their friends, they invited the few demons who had fled to safety to return to their deserted homes. The demons and their leaders continued to mourn with gloomy minds and disfigured bodies like lotuses beaten down by the frost. They made no effort or attempt like figures in a painting. They had no hope of resuscitation like a tree struck by lightning. So, with this, chapter 30 also comes to an end. In chapter 31, Prahlad bemoans the demon's loss and praises Vishnu. Masiji continuing. Prahlad remained unhappy in his underground region, brooding over sad thoughts of the destruction of the Danav demons and their homes. Prahlad thinking to himself, ah, what is to become of us when this Vishnu is bent to destroy the best amongst us? Like a monkey pulling out shoots and sprouts of trees. Nowhere or on earth or in the infernal regions do I see any Daitya demons left to enjoy their properties. They are all stunted in their growth like lotuses growing on mountain tops. They rise only to fall like the loud beating of a drum. Their rising and falling are like the waves of the sea. Sorrow to us, who are so miserable in both our inner and outer circumstances. Happy are our enemies of light, the gods who have overcome us. Oh, the terrors of darkness! Our friends of the dark infernal regions are all darkened in their souls with loss of courage. Their fortune is as transitory as the expansion of the lotus leaf by day and its contraction at night. We see the gods who were mean servants at the feet of our Father have usurped his kingdom in the way timid deer usurp the sovereignty of the lion in the forest. We find our friends all disfigured and effortless, sitting melancholy and dejected in their hopelessness, like lotuses with their withered leaves and petals. We see the houses of our gigantic demons filled with clouds of dust and frost, blown by gusts of wind by day and night, and resembling the fumes of fire which burned them down. The inner apartments are laid open, without doors or enclosures, overgrown with the sprouts of barley shooting out as blades of sapphires from underneath the ground. Ah, there is nothing impossible to irresistible fate that has so reduced the mighty demons who used to pluck flowers from the mountain tops of Meru like big elephants. Now we have come to this sad condition of the wandering gods of the past. Our ladies cring like frightened deer at the rustling of the breeze amidst the leaves of trees. They fear enemy arrows whistling and howling through the open air. Oh, the shining gulunk blossoms that decorated our women's ears are now shorn, torn, and left desolate by the hands of Vishnu. Like the lonesome plains of the desert, they have robbed us of the all producing, wish fulfilling kalp trees and planted them in their Nandan pleasure gardens, now teeming with their shooting gems and green leaflets in the ethereal sphere. The eyes of the haughty demons that formerly looked with pity on the faces of their captured gods are now indignantly looked upon by victorious gods who have made captives of them. It is known that the fluids pouring from the mouths of spouting elephants of heaven on the tops of the mountains fall down in the form of cascades and gives rise to rivers on earth. But the foam flowing from the faces of our elephants like giants is as dry as dust at the sights of the gods, just like a channel is sucked up in the dry and dreary desert of sand. Ah, where have those Daitya demons fled, whose bodies were once as big as the peaks of Mount Meru and were fanned by fragrant breezes, breathing with the scented dust of Mandara flowers? The beautiful ladies of the gods and Gandharvas, once kept as captives in the inner apartments of demons, are now snatched from us and placed on Meru as if they were transplanted to grow there as heavenly plants. Oh, how painful is to think that the fading graces of our captured girls are now mocked by heavenly Apsara nymphs in their disdainful dance over their defeat and disgrace. Oh, it is painful to think that the lady attendants who fanned my father are now waiting upon the thousand eyes Indra in their servile toil. Oh, the greatest of our grief is our sad and distressing fall at the hands of a single Vishnu who has reduced us to this stage of helpless impotency. The gods resting under the thick and cooling shades of trees are as cool as the rocks of the icy Himalayas. They don't burn with rage or complain in grief like we. The gods protected by the power of Vishnu are raised to the height of prosperity. They mock and restrain us in these caves, as apes on trees do dogs below. The faces of our fairies, though decked and with ornaments, are now bedewed with drops of their tears, like lotus leaves with the cold dew of night. The old stage of this aged world, which was defeated and about to be pulled down by our might, is now supported upon the blue arms of Vishnu, like the roof of heaven standing upon the blue arches of the blue sky. Vishnu has become the support of the celestial host when it was about to be hurled into the depth of hell. Vishnu supports in the same manner as the great tortoise supported Mount Mandara as it churned and sank in the milky ocean. Our great father and these mighty demons under him have been laid down to dust like the lofty hills that were leveled to the ground by the blast of heaven at the end of Kalp age. The leader of the celestial forces, the peerless destroyer of Vishnu, is able to destroy all and everything by the fire in his hands. His elder brother Indra, by the force of the thunderbolts, held by his mightier arms, baffles battle axes in the hands of the mighty demons, like big male monkeys killing their male offsprings. The lightning weapons of the lotus-eyed Vishnu are invincible, and there is no weapon which can foil the force of Indra's thunder. This Vishnu is invincible in warfare. He defeated our forefathers in previous battles in which they uprooted and flung great rocks at him and waged many dreadful campaigns. He who stood victorious in those long, dreadful, and destructive wars of times past cannot be expected to be afraid of us. I have thought of only one way to oppose the rage of Vishnu, besides which I find no other way for our safety. Therefore, with all possible speed, let us go to him for help, with full contriteness of our souls and understanding, because that God is the true refuge of the pious and the only resort of everybody. There is no greater than he in all the three worlds. I have come to know that only Vishnu is the cause of the creation, preservation, and destruction or reproduction of the world. From this moment, therefore, I will think only of that unborn Narayan for evermore. I must rely on that Narayan, which is present in all places and is full in myself and filling all space. Worship of Narayan forms my faith and position for my success in all undertakings. May this faith of mine ever abide in my heart as the wind has its place in the midst of empty air. Vishnu is to be known to fill all sides of space and vacuum and every part of this earth and all these worlds. My ego is the immeasurable spirit of Vishnu. My inborn soul is full of Vishnu. He who is not full with Vishnu in himself doesn't benefit by his adoration of Vishnu. But he who worships Vishnu by thinking himself as such finds himself assimilated with his God and becomes one with him. He who knows Vishnu to be the same with Prahlada and not different from him finds Vishnu to fill his inward soul with his spirit. Vishnu's Garuda eagle flies through the infinite space of the sky as the presence of Vishnu fills all infinity. His golden light of his body in the seat of my Vishnu also. The claws of this bird serve as Vishnu's weapons. The flash of his nails is the flash of Vishnu's weapons. Vishnu has four arms wearing armlets representing the four shining heights of Mount Mandara with which Vishnu churned the milky ocean. This moon-like figure with the flapper fan in her hand and rising from the depth of the milky ocean is the goddess of prosperity, the consort of Vishnu. She is Vishnu's brilliant glory, which is easily which he easily acquires. She is ever attendant on his person with undiminished luster. She illuminates the three worlds like the radiant medicinal tree Maha Oshadhi. Vishnu's other companion is called illusion Maya, which is ever busy in the creation of worlds upon worlds and is stretching a magical enchantment all about them. The goddess Victory, Jaya, is an easily earned attendant for Vishnu. She shines as a shoot of the wish fulfilling Kalpa tree, extending to the three worlds as an all pervading plant. Those two warming and cooling luminaries of the sun and moon serve to manifest all the worlds to view. They are the two eyes situated on the forehead of my Vishnu. This azure sky is the blue color of the body of my Vishnu, which is as dark as a mass of watery cloud and darkens the sphere of heaven with its sky blue radiance. The meaning of the word Vishnu was afterward changed to the residing divinity in all things from the root vish, white. Here is the whitish conch in the hand of my Vishnu, which blows its fivefold notes Panchajanya and is as bright as the vacuum, the receptacle of sound, and as white as the milky ocean of heavens. Here I see the lotus in the hand of Vishnu, representing the lotus of his navel, the seat of Brahma, who rose from and sat upon it like a bee to form his hive of the world. I see the club of my Vishnu's hand is studded with gems. In the lofty peak of Mount Sumeru, beset by its shining stones and hurling down demons from its precipice. I see here the discus of my Vishnu in the rising luminary of the sun, which fills all sides of the infinite space with the radiance beams that emanate from it. I see there in the flaming fire the flashing sword of Vishnu, which like an axe has cut down the gigantic bodies of Daitya, demons like trees, giving great joy to the gods. I also see Vishnu's great bow in the variegated rainbow of Indra, and also the quiver of his arrows in the Pushkar and Avrat clouds, pouring down their rains from above like piercing arrows. Vishnu's big belly is the vast emptiness of the sky, which contains all worlds and all past and present and future creation in its spacious womb. I see the earth as the footstool of Brahma, and the high sky as the canopy of his head. His body is the stupendous fabric of the universe, and his sides are the sides of the compass. I see the great Vishnu visibly manifest shining under the blue dome of heaven, mounted on his mountain like eagle and holding his conch shell, discus, cudgel, and the lotus in his hands. I see wicked and evil minded demons flying from me like straw blown and carried away by the winds. This dark deity, with its blue sapphire color and yellow covering, holding the club and mounted on the Garuda eagle and accompanied by Lakshmi, is nothing other than the identical imperishable one. What adverse spirit can dare approach this all devouring flame without being burnt to death, like a flight of moths falling on a great fire? None of these hosts of gods and demigods that I see before me is able to withstand the irresistible course of the determination of Vishnu. All attempts to oppose it will be as vain as for our weak sighted eyes to shut out the light of the sun. I know the gods Brahma, Indra, Shiva, and Agni praise Vishnu as their Lord in endless verses and many tongues. This Lord is ever resplendent with his dignity and is invincible in his might. He is the Lord beyond all doubt, dispute, and duality, and is joined with transcendent majesty. I bow down to that person who stands like a farm rock amidst the forest of the world and is a defense from all fears and danger. Vishnu is a stupendous body, having all the world situated in its womb and forming the essence and substance of every distinct object of vision. With this chapter 31 also comes to an end, and we rest our today's reading session here itself. It is completed with the grace of Lord Ram, and we will meet again tomorrow for the reading session of chapter 32 onward. Until then, Shivoham, friends. Shivoham.